Hello Watford fans, it's Louis Bent here from the Baggies Podcast, which is a show all about West Bromwich Albion. Here to give my thoughts ahead of West Bromwich Albion and Watford next Monday night. Yeah, it's a big game for both sides. Of course, yourselves just coming down from the Premier League, and also ourselves, of course, coming down just the season before last as well. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. Of course, watched your game last night. Very impressive performance. Really pleased with. I'm sure you guys will be really pleased with the way that you played and got a result against what looked like a pretty decent Sheffield United side on paper as well. So yeah, of course, ourselves, we had a really underwhelming season last year, and I'm sure that's all known to pretty much the entirety of the football community. You know that we came down from the Premier League, expected to go straight back up under Valerian Ismail. He turned out to be a bit of a failure, and then Steve Bruce bought in midway through the season to try and prop ourselves up into the playoff places, and yeah, of course, inevitably failed. So yeah, I think this season our hopes are to get back on track and get into those playoff positions and maybe push towards those automatics, depending on how the rest of the league looks. But of course, it's a much stronger league than last year, so that's why last year's failure looks as bad as it does, really. The signings we brought in should help a great deal. Jed Wallace, John Swift coming in, of course, two big names in the Championship, two of the most consistent creators over the past 5 or so years in the Championship. Arkaya Kushlu as well is a big pull, coming in from a top level Spanish club. And yeah, he was fantastic for us in the Premier League. So yeah, we hope that he can bring something new to the table as well. So I think the standout signing would be John Swift, because he fills such a gap in our creativity. And yeah, I think he's only going to help us in terms of getting back on track. And yeah, as for ones to watches for both sides ahead of the game, of course, watching you guys last night, Emmanuel Dennis was immense. I know João Pedro got the goal, but yeah, I think Dennis was particularly superb. I think he must have completed a ridiculous amount of dribbles, constantly terrorising the Sheffield United defence, and I think that if you can keep that front three together, I think you've got a real prospect on your hands. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what you guys bring. Ones to watch for us and for the season ahead as well. I think Grady Diangana's a real ones to watch out of the non-new signings. I think the way that he's played and in pre-season, and we saw a little bit of it in the Middlesbrough game, his willingness to run at players. I'm just not sure that Steve Bruce quite trusts him just yet and is willing to give him the opportunity. Of course, we know that he's quite conservative and wants to play the more defensive players like he did against Middlesbrough with Matt Phillips. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see who he picks, and if Grady Diangana starts, I'm sure it'll be a ones to watch. Yeah, as I said for you guys, of course, those two wingers, Emmanuel Dennis and Ismail Assar. I did also like Edu Kayembe in midfield as well. I think he looked pretty good too in that midfield with Tom Cleverley. I thought he looked pretty decent. I remember watching a little bit of him in the Premier League, and the same with Hassan Kamara as well at wing back. He looked pretty good in the Premier League. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with those two as sort of new signings in the Premier League as well. Yeah. As for score predictions, I'm probably going to go with a 1-1 draw, similar to the Middlesbrough game. I think that we'll probably be a bit more conservative, and that's not that's not surprising considering Bruce's normal approach and the strength of yourselves. And finally, finishing off with a little league prediction, 3 to go up would be. I'm thinking, after watching Norwich on the first, I'm not too sure, but I think Norwich, Middlesbrough, and I'd probably say that as I'm on a Watford channel, I may as well say yourselves. But I think that we'll be in the mix for the playoffs and hopefully getting into the playoff final as well. That'd be nice. But yeah, we would obviously hope not to lose if we got to Wembley. And 3 to go down, Rotherham, Wigan, and I think Birmingham as well. I think are one of my favourites to go down. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on the show, and take care.